In this exercise, we'll be working with gravity and collisions and creating a little bit of a gaming effect in a sort of a platform environment here. Now, I've got a finished file which I'll run, and then we'll start from scratch to create a similar type of game. Let me click on preview here. What we've got is a ball falling. So there's some gravity on the ball, and we've got one block that's not fixed. It's kind of randomly floating around, creating havoc once in a while when it hits the ball. So if it comes up again, you see it can bump it up. You'll notice that when it escapes in the top, it re-enters in the bottom. So it does kind of recycle itself when it goes through. And you also notice that it's going faster and faster. It's accelerating. I've also built in some controls into the green ball. If I hit the space bar, it will jump, and I can jump mid-air as well, so I can go higher and higher. And you can see I'm getting bashed around here a bit. And I can also go left and right, and simultaneously jump and left and right. So I can actually navigate around this screen, but there is some gravity applied to that ball. And again, there's that wild card, if you will, coming around. And it does change speeds on impact, so there's a little bit of a gaming effect, but no real conclusion to it at this point. And of course, the four walls contain the green ball inside of the environment. So let me just stop this now, and we'll start this from scratch. I'll just start a new file. Actually, I'll explain it a little bit here, then we'll start the new file. Let me go back here. We've got two basic actors, one called player, which is the green ball, and one called platform, which I'm basically using as a brick, and I'm stretching it and so on and placing it on the screen. So these are all instances of the one original graphic here in the inspector. I believe it's called the prototype. And then I've got a lot of behaviors attached to the green ball. I just double clicked it to get to them. A lot of them are collapsed right now, but we've got accelerate, which is imitating gravity. We've got a feature that says if it collides with any of those purple bricks, that it will bounce off of them. In other words, it will collide and not go through. And I've attached a sound to the collision, as you can see here. And move right and move left. And another rule for jumping, which actually I should just change that to jump and save this. And these are all the controls, as well as the collision parameters and the gravity, which is actually an accelerate behavior in this case. And if we go back here, I actually don't have any behaviors attached to the platform, but I do have some attributes. If I double click on the platform, if I go down here to physics, I have made it so that it's not movable, so it's unchecked, and I've made it fixed rotation. In other words, it will not rotate. So just some of the basic features that we'll be setting when we set these up. So at this point, I will start a new file. So file new, and I'll call this purple gravity. And let's save the file. That's the title. Let's save this file, save, and I'll keep it in my game salad folder. I'll call it purple underscore gravity. Hit save. And let's just make sure we set the settings here. I'm just going to expand my window actually. Okay. Platform. We're going to do this for iPad. So let's just choose iPad landscape. Click OK. And let's also choose resolution independence. Alright, so we'll go into our first scene, which is of course still generic and blank. We can double click on that scene to get started. So what I would suggest is we bring in our assets first and set up our actors, and then we'll set up the basic environment with some gravity. So let's go down to the library. You should have already created the green ball in Photoshop, and I have one. Click on the Images tab, click on the plus sign, and in my Assets folder I do have the green ball PNG. Click Open. And I'm also going to bring in a sound which should be provided to you, and I've put it in that same Assets folder, so I'll click on Sounds, click the Add button, and it's called Electronic Hit FX16.caf, core audio file. Click open and definitely save. Okay, so I've got my two assets there. I've got the ball and the sound. And if you want to preview the sound, you can click on the little arrow. And it's just a little bump sound. Okay, I'll go back to behaviors here. So I need to create what are called actors again that can host images and so on. So I'm going to create an actor for the ball and one common actor for the building blocks, if you will. So I'll just click add actor and I'll add two of them. Then I'll come in here and triple click and name it. This one I'll actually call it player. And this one I will call platform. Okay, so let's give these some features and some attributes. For player, I'm going to attach the green ball image. So I'll go to images. I can actually just drag it from here and drag it over that icon. And now that will adopt that image. For platform, I'm going to double click it and I'll just give it a color. So under attributes, color, click on the color chip. And I'm just going to give this a bit of a dark purple. There we go. And go back to my scene. And I guess the first thing I'll do is build 4 walls. Let me just show you a couple of things first. So let me double click on the actor. If you recall, when you were instructed to do this, it was 128 by 128. Now GameSolid brings it in at half the size, 64 by 64, which is actually perfect for what we need today. But if I go back here to this generic actor with no graphics, I can double click it. By default, the size is 100 by 100. I'm actually going to change that to 64 tab, 64 tab, so that it falls under that 4 by 4 multiple. Again, it will just make things more efficient and run better inside of GameSolid. So let's go back here. Now that I've changed the size on my platform, I can drag it into the scene and then resize it. So I just want to make sure that it creates a wall that surrounds all 4 sides. So I'm just changing the dimensions here. Now I can use my Option key, Alt key on the PC to duplicate. And then just move that. So that's the floor. This with the ceiling. I can bring in another one over here and make it the left wall. And then refine its position. And then I can actually Option or Alt click that. Bring it in on the right side. So now I've got 4 walls, which will act as a barrier for when the green ball is inside of this little chamber, if you will. The next step now is to introduce the green ball to the scene and also apply some, in this case I'll call it pseudo gravity or fake gravity. There are some actual gravity settings that we will try a little later on, but this method is probably the better way to go, so I'm going to show you that first. But the first thing I'll do is drag player from the inspector onto the scene. I'll just hit preview right now. Let's just see what happens. We shouldn't really be seeing too much, and as predicted, static scene. Let's go back now, and we're going to work on the prototype to apply all the behaviors. So I will double click on the player over here, and we'll go down to behaviors. I'll click on the tab, and the behavior we're going to use is called accelerate, and I will drag that in to this area right here. And we have some settings here. We're going to set the direction downwards, so I can start with the little dial, but I know that it's actually 270 to go straight down. So I'll type that in and hit my tab key. And acceleration, I'll set that at 300 for now, and we'll just try that and let's see what happens. So let's click preview. So the speed's okay, but it dropped out of the scene and it wasn't held back by the walls of the floor. If I click reset, you'll see that again. It just kind of drops out of the scene. So we need to create some resistance between the walls and the floor and the green ball. So let's go back here. And the way we can do that is we'll set up what's known as a collide behavior. So when the green ball collides with the prototype known as platform, it will be resisted. It will hit resistance. So let's go down here and find collide, and we'll bring that in. Again, we're attaching these to the green ball, So bounce when colliding with actor of type platform. So when it hits one of the elements called platform, it will not go through it. So let's hit preview and see what happens now. Aha! It's not going through it, but it's knocking it all over the place. So we need to actually address that and lock down these platform elements. So let's go back here. We'll go back again. So I'll go into the platforms, I'll double click it, and under attributes, we're going to go down to physics, open that up, and we'll turn off the movable feature. I will click on fixed rotation as well, which means that it will not rotate. It won't rotate and it won't move upon collision. Let's try that again. Okay, so now we have the resistance, but I'll be honest with you, the bounce is way too strong. When it comes to bounce, it's affected by both elements that collide. So we're going to reset the bounce on both of those prototypes. So again, I'll just pause this here. We'll go back. And I'll start with platform. Again, under physics, we have what's called bounciness. I'm going to set those to 0. Now, because I'm going to the prototype, any instance of that element on the stage will adopt these features. Let me go to player, double click it, and we'll go down to physics to bounciness. 1 means it will bounce the exact same height that it dropped from. So I'm going to go to 0.35, which is similar to real gravity, but you'll see the effect right here. It won't bounce nearly as much. Let's hit preview. Or nearly as high, I mean. And there we go. So we've got a room that contains the ball, and we've got gravity on the ball, and we do have a little bit of bounce to it when it hits the ground. Let's go back now. Now it's time to give the user some controls over the green ball. We're going to just implement a simple left and right motion attached to the left and right arrow keys on the keyboard, and we'll give it a jump feature. What we'll do though is we'll allow the jump feature in the left and right to work anywhere in space. It doesn't need to be sitting on a platform per se. So let's start by double clicking the player again, and we'll create a rule. We'll just start with motion right, I guess. So we'll say call the rule move right. And actor receives event key. And I'll just say right arrow key. So when the right arrow key is pressed down, we will attach the behavior change attribute. And we'll go down to the attributes. We'll find the player. We'll go down to motion, linear, and it's the x-axis is left and right, so let's double click on x. And positive numbers move to the right, negative numbers move to the left. So let's just, for now, let's just try maybe 100 and see what that does. I'll hit my tab key, and let's just preview that. I'll let it hit the ground, I guess. And I'll hit my right arrow key. And there we go. I'm actually going to speed that up a bit. And you can see there's a bit of friction that applies, so it eventually stops. So there is momentum and friction to stop it. Those could be changed. We're not going to work with those today, however. So let me go back. I'm going to set that motion to 300. And let's just try that again for speed. And I can do it anywhere in the air, as you can see. Alright, so let's do the same thing now for your left control. Go back. Now since I've done all of this work, I can duplicate it and change some of the properties, and that's what I will do. I'm just going to collapse it here, highlight it, Option key down, Alt key on the PC, drag it down. I'll immediately change the name to move left, and of course we'll change the keyboard to the left key. And we'll change the 300 to a -300 and just hit my enter key. So now it's got left and right movement. Let's preview that. There's left, there's right, Okay, so we're good to go on left and right. And it does keep going for a while. Let's just go back. And I'd also like to put in a jump feature. So I'm going to start another new rule, create rule. Again, based on a key press. And this time I'll use the space bar. So keyboard space bar. So we're just going to use change attribute here. And we will change the direction of the motion. So let's go down to player, motion, linear, and this is the y-axis. We double click on y, and I'll just type in about 300 in my tab key. And let's give that a try. So I should get some kind of jump anywhere I am with the space bar. So it kind of resists that acceleration downward, but it ultimately does have to surrender to it. So now I should have left and right, and I can hop along. And I can keep going up and up if I want to hit my spacebar more frequently. And now we've got some navigation and some ways of getting around.